Okay. So I'm going to start with Diane first. Hi, Diane.
Hi.
Okay, so could you tell us a bit about where you and your family are from?
Okay, I'd like us to start something to give you an idea where I'm from. At 5 years of age, my father took me to the cloisters in New York City. The cloisters are on top of the hill in Washington Heights. They overlook the Hudson River. On that day, my father showed me the beauty of the Catholic Church, the peacefulness, the reverence others brought to this breathtaking place. On that day, my father gave me the cloisters as a gift. He told me that this castle was my gift. God was here. He was the architect in the air and on the other spaces. I was in awe of the serenity and beauty. I looked around and asked my father who all the other people were walking around in my castle. He said, God would want you to share this beautiful gift with everyone, wouldn't he? You must share your gifts and not keep them to yourself. So I left knowing two things. I owned a castle, and I was sharing my castle with anyone who loved it too. I was the firstborn child to Irish-American parents born in New York City in the borough of Manhattan. I have identical twin brothers who are 3 years younger than myself and a sister who is 8 years my junior. My father was a policeman in New York City and later for the New York Port of Authority. My mother was a model, a switchboard operator, secretary of taxes, and school registrar. She's kind of busy. My mother was the fourth of 10 children, and my father was the third of 4. Between those two families, I have 60 first cousins. Baptisms, first communions, confirmations, weddings, wakes, and funerals were a constant occurrence in our family, and they all were around the Catholic Church.
Thank you. And so you mentioned the Catholic Church. Can you tell us a bit more about your faith journey, your own personal faith journey?
Yes. Okay, I'll try to make it much shorter than it actually was because it was very long. When I was 6 years of age, we moved to Long Island, and my block had a lot of transplants, mostly from Brooklyn. Dozens of young families shared cramped city living. They traded the city living for a piece of dirt and dirt roads. My street was full of policeman families, one fireman, a few Brooklyn transplants. Every mom was home on the block. This town had no Catholic school, which was very hard for my family to think about. So while that was being built for 4 years, I was in public school. So it was in public school I met my best friend Debbie. Her dad was the town rabbi. And they were Orthodox, not only just Jewish, they were Orthodox. So every Saturday I'd go to their house and turn the lights on for her and her sister. I didn't really know why, but that was my job there. September and October brought the Jewish high holidays. Debbie's mom worked with all the other women in the temple, cooking enough food for the town. She'd slip us freshly made matzah, and we would play in the basement and run through the kitchen. I slipped through the actual temple while playing. I was not sure if that was okay. I went home and asked my grandmother. Grandma told me that she herself took the steps of the Anglican Church and entered. When she went through the doors to see if she would instantly be struck down and die, nothing happened. And she said to me, there you have it. I lived. It's all hogwash. So I started 5th grade in a wool jumper and blouse, clip-on tie, knee socks, and penny loafers, and began St. Cyril's. My 7th grade curriculum included the Protestant Reformation. I asked my religion teacher if I decided if I really wanted to be a Presbyterian, and God only knows why he said that, but would that be okay? Within a second, she was in my face, screaming, must you see the marks and the nails and the place your hand into Christ's side, you damning Thomas. So I didn't say anything for the rest of the day. I didn't come out of my room. My mother called my aunt, and my aunt said, Your mom says you're not coming out, what's going on? And I told her, and she said, oh, stupid woman. Why is she teaching children? Doesn't matter what religion you practice, you must be the best person you can be and God will love you. Amen. And I believed my aunt. In Catholic high school, we were educated by the Sisters of St. Joseph, and they taught the Roots of Faith Bible. Now, the Roots of Faith Bible starts out with the pretense we were all Jewish first. It made my spiritual journey much easier because I understood how we were all the same and all different. Many of my friends had a harder time. An odd spiritual experience was during high school, and 13 of my friends converted to Jehovah's Witnesses. So that was more of the politics than the faith, because during that time we were in Vietnam. And one of the tenets of their faith is that you become a conscientious objector. And I think it was their way to protest against the war. I tried for 3 years on and off, but I just couldn't come to believe in their teachings. As an adult, my family held many Passover Seders in my home because I had more dishes than my friends. I attended many Shabbat Friday meals with my children and my friends. I've been to bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs. I attended services at Greek Orthodox Church, and I participated in the Hindu service. Finally, I've been to dozens and dozens of houses of Christian faith in Maryland. I believe NBUMC is my final spiritual resting home. I love you all and love this church. I pray for this precious, unique spot on earth. I know that each of you have Christ living within you, and any failing from one sows love and acceptance from another. I am thankful for this piece of our sanctuary, our church leaders, and our entire church family. And last but not least, I am most thankful for my sister Rose for inviting me here in 2008.
Thank you, Diane. That's very powerful. Do you have any special skills or hobbies or talents or things that you enjoy that you would like to share with us?
So basically, I'm a negotiator, if that's a talent or skill. So I've always been interested in learning. I returned to college when my children were in high school, and I told them I was going back to school, and I would graduate before they did, and I'd have better grades. They took on the challenge, and I won. I found a niche as a patient advocate through my position in healthcare group. I was able to use the talents of negotiation, logic, and empathy to serve and support the patients in need. I was able to help facilitate obtaining assistance for those patients without prescription care, those needing longer stays in the hospital, those suffering through withdrawal of substance abuse, and in need of long-term care. I was able to take those talents into my new career in Montgomery College. I negotiate daily to support the college's healthcare programs. This includes support of our students, faculty, and staff's needs. I work and negotiate with our attorneys to find legal answers required to keep programs running and help students through many complicated situations.
Thank you. And in terms of race and equity, what has your experience been around race and equity, if any?
Okay, so race and equity. Now you know I'm old, so I've seen a lot of things, and I couldn't put everything down, but until 1958, my apartment building in New York City was white. The building down the block was black, and the building across the street was Hispanic. In fall, we moved to Long Island. My block was Irish, Italian, a Jewish family, a Polish family, a German family, and we were all white. In 1966, there were predominantly white students in the Catholic high school and a handful of black students. But in 1968, I entered public high school. It was a world of difference. My friend Gail and I transferred. Students were primarily white, however, She was dating someone who was black from the football team. I got friendly with the players from the football team. They were black and white. We had a lot of fun. She was German and Irish, and an Irish girl came up to me and threatened me and told me to tell Gail to stop dating the football player who was African American. And I thought that was a ridiculous thing to tell me to do. So I didn't, and there were threats, and nothing happened. And I think that that helped me, because I stood up to the threat, and nothing ever happened. So I dated whoever I wanted, and I shared little information with my parents. I was untypical as to dating because I was dating both boys and girls. I never felt I was doing anything wrong. I knew others may look at my dating as wrong, but I was not asking anyone for permission. This was the early 70s, flower power, drug, sex, rock and roll, San Francisco. So by the time I entered college, we'd gone through the assassination of Malcolm X, Dr. Martin Luther King, and Robert Kennedy. This was a time of much civil unrest in our country. I attended college in Dubuque, Iowa, another story for another time. In 1972, my best friend, boyfriend, was African American and lived in Chicago. He came by, and she was out of town, so he and I grabbed dinner. He walked me home and he gave me a friendly kiss goodbye, and apparently someone was watching us, because then the death threats started. The death threats came from both black and white students. They came by phone in the middle of the night. They came by day from a group of whites. I was not afraid, just really aggravated because of their ignorance. I had many friends who were both black and white and could not understand what was wrong with these, who would call me in the dead of the night to threaten me. Fast forward, Maryland. When I divorced, my family asked me to move to New York. I came to love the diversity of Montgomery County. I love my children's friends, my neighbors, their cooking, their children. I told my family, here is what the world really looks like. My children have to live in a world, and not in a world of Italian and Irish only. So, Deer Park was not the real world. I was staying and had found a permanent home.
Thank you, Diane. So what would you say you've had to learn or unlearn about issues of social justice?
Well, fear is in the air. I think we all see it right now, but so is hope. I have learned that we as human beings are constantly evolving, and when leadership shows disdain, intolerance, bias, hate, and prejudice, those failings show and grow. I have learned to show love and not hate when people are not educated. I understand that people who have not been educated on matters of equality, equity, civility, and social justice need prayers, not anger. I have learned we are all God's people. I have thanked God and learned to work through my own biases, believing I come from the best because I was Catholic, from New York, Irish, and with the love and strength of my life partner, I've learned education does help. Prayer does help, and love always wins.
Thank you, Diane. Okay, thank you so much, Diane. So we're going to pass it to Nathaniel, and then after we hear from Nathaniel, we will take some questions, if that's okay. Nathaniel, please let us know where you and your family are from, and who's in your family.
Okay. Well, I was born on the west coast of Africa. Beautiful country, about 43,000 square miles in the area, which is, we always compared it to Rhode Island. It's smaller than the state of Rhode Island. Liberia was formed by former slaves who had left the United States. I have friends now who joke and say that we were, the rejects from America who were sent back there. But the idea that sprang up from that transition was a very close-knit country, but some that from the very beginning differed in the sense that a lot of other African countries at that time were being colonized, or actually were colonized and still within the throes of colonization. Liberia and Ethiopia are the only two African countries that weren't colonized. And so we had a different experience. We really didn't feel what other countries were feeling, what other Africans were feeling. And we were always called Little America, and I think I understood that because we probably didn't appreciate the essence of being Africans because we had such a close relationship to this country. My mother was Methodist. My dad was a Catholic. Regrettably, they didn't live together. My father moved to the northern part of our country called Nimba County, which borders the Ivory Coast. And so after my birth and the birth of my younger brother, I'm the first of four for my mother. She moved back to Monrovia, the capital city, and that's where she lived with her sister. So I grew up in a household with two women, two sisters, who for the 18 years that I had my mother with me, I never once saw them argue or fight. So when there were issues, you could tell because one person would be in the other room and the other person would be outside hanging with the kids. So you knew something was wrong, but there was never any visible sign of animosity between the two. No voices, no arguments. Discussions about finances and stuff were taboo around the kids, so we never really heard that. But I'll say again, the only school I went to in Liberia was a Catholic school. So I'm listening to Diane and thinking the more we are the same. The Catholic school I went to was the only school from kindergarten through 12th grade. I thought I was privileged enough because when there were talk of moving us from 9th to adding a 10th grade, we were going to be the first class that was pure cathedral. Cathedral High School was the school. The first class that was pure cathedral to go to 10th and go to 11th. But a couple of cruel jokes played on me when my brother, who 2 years my junior, came into school. They cut off kindergarten. So when I was in the 2nd grade, he was in the 1st grade, which meant I needed to keep my grades up or else he would catch up with me. And then when I got into the 9th to the 8th grade, thinking that the school will wait until we got to 9th to add a 10th, they added a 10th grade and brought in students from other Catholic schools. So we got to be the 2nd graduating class at Cathedral. But I just remember growing up in a country where we called certain group of people Americo-Liberians, which means those who were descendants of Americans who came over. My mother's family is from South Carolina. My granddaddy, Poindexter family, is rooted in South Carolina. But there were also indigenous Africans and Liberians who found that they didn't quite participate in what the rest of the country shared, and that I'll try to explain in another answer.
Thank you so much. So you also went to a Catholic school.
Yes.
Please explain a bit about your faith journey and how you ended up here in Methodist Church.
So like I said, my mom was a Methodist, but I went to a Catholic school, so when you go to Catholic school, you are part of the Catholic Church. I was baptized, I went to confirmation, I went to all of the sacraments, excluding marriage, because at the time I was too young, but we hadn't gotten to that point. But as a Catholic, you went to church, and then Fridays you had confession, and then Saturdays you were expected to go to confession if you didn't go on Fridays. But then you went to church on Sundays. You were expected at church every Sunday. So you had the nuns and the sisters, the nuns and the priests who would expect to see you in church on Sunday, and if you didn't, you got to ask about it on Mondays. We didn't live very far from the church and school, so our walk was about a mile, but not a daunting task at all. We had friends along the way, so every Sunday we would get up and go to church. And we hated those as a kid because your parents would go to the Methodist church, whether on the other side of town or across town, and you were left to go to Catholic church because that's where you were going to school. So I grew up a Catholic. And like today when we were saying the Apostles' Creed, you know, one holy Catholic church, I know the asterisk is for universal because Catholic is universal. But when you're Catholic in a Catholic school, that Catholic is Catholic. It's not universal. So I remember later when I graduated high school and I met up with some cousins who were at the Baptist church. And I just felt a kind of welcoming, a kind of appreciation of me that I hadn't felt in the Catholic church. And so I went to my principal and told him I needed, and there's a ritual you need to be allowed to go to another church. And the first thing he said was, you know what that word universal, Catholic means, right? It's universal. So it's like, now it's universal, then it was just Catholic, you know. But moving to the Baptist church meant singing, meant participating, meant just a great fellowship. But regrettably, my mother passed away when I graduated high school. And so I felt an emptiness in college at the University of Liberia. I thought I would grow up to be, and I know I wanted to be a pilot at one point, but more importantly, I was in the science of school. And so math was always a strong point and something I wanted to pursue as well. But with her being gone and my 4 brothers, we had 2 other kids from my stepdad, who I always just thought of as my stepdad. He was just this guy who was there and not my actual father. But when I noticed that after my mom's death, he just wouldn't go away. He was still there. And that's when I realized that he actually was my father. It was not just the guy who sired me, but this was somebody who was more a father to me than anybody else would. But at the same time, at the Baptist church, I felt a very strong sense of wanting to serve God, and so I left the University of Liberia and went to the Liberia Baptist Theological Seminary. And there I attended to educate as a Christian educator because I wanted to come out and just teach and then work with the churches. So I remember a couple of years at Liberia Baptist Theological Seminary when I was sitting in the garden. And for those of you who don't know, most funerals that we go to, African funerals, if the burial is in a small town, the procession after the church is usually one that is along a small street, and you have a lot of people along the way just watching the procession. I recall that because my mother's burial was similar, but I never felt like I had a chance to grieve because I had my aunts on one side and I had my cousin on the other. And holding them both up, I couldn't do anything but support them. And I remember seeing friends and families around. So 2 years later, I'm in this garden at the school, and a peace came over me like I've never felt. And it just made me understand that God is present in our lives, that He's important for what I want to do. And so I knew that being at the seminary was the right choice for me. And that just started an exuberance about religion and just a change in character and behavior. Because I remember a couple of real boneheaded decisions I made that I had to take a step back and realize that as now a member of the church leadership, you need to behave a little different. You need to start to respect people and let not what you read and preach, but what you do be the example for who you are as a Christian.
Thank you, Nathaniel, for sharing that. would you mind sharing any special interests you have, or special skills, or even what you do for work? Anything in your background that you feel we should know?
So I think for me, what highlights is being a part of this congregation and working on the finance committee, or always available to assist Jesse. Ushering, I'm not sure why he does it every Sunday, but I remember when I came to the United States, I lived in North Carolina, and I lived with a church family, Ardmore Baptist Church, wonderful church family. They took me in and welcomed me. And I remember just being pushed, like I am pushed even now to sing in the choir, and just being pushed, being pushed. And if you know me, I'm more the laid back kind of person. You would not see me up there. But I resisted until it just got to a point where somebody gave me a rope, and I just ended up singing in the choir. So if Tony is here, maybe that's what he needs to do. And then fast forward to Smyrna First United Methodist Church in Georgia, still being pushed. I headed the usher board at Smyrna First for about 3 or 4 years. And it was great working with the other older men who were deep in the community and in the church and knew the history of the church, but also, being pushed to sing in the choir and just kind of sitting back and not really wanting to. But eventually, again, I got given a robe and I ended up singing in the choir. So when it comes to skills, as much as I am, and I do IT programming, so I'm more a project manager for information technology with a federal government contract. But my passion is the fellowship and the leadership. That's where I blossom, and that's what I love doing and do very passionately.
Thank you. And I saw some choir members whispering to each other, so.
I can go downstairs right now.
Thank you. So Nathaniel, as an African American man in the U.S., there's a lot that comes with that. Would you please speak about your experience around race and equity here in the States?
So, coming from where I came from, West Africa, I grew up in a family where I was taught respect for self, respect for people. So even at 54, which is, my daughter thinks I'm very old. I know a lot of people who think I'm still a baby, but even at 54, I don't care whether it's Grace or an adult, I am yes ma'am, yes sir. Those are just things I grew up with. So to say that I've experienced some of what others have will not be fair, because it's been different for me. I tend to respect people because of my Christian education. I do not expect you to respect me. It's not important to me that you reflect what I do, because I don't. My Christianity tells me that I don't wait for that to come back to me. It's not important to me that the love I show you gets reciprocated. It's important that I show you love. It's important that I give. It's important that I share. So coming from that